And the quartet, such as they were, waited in the clearing, watching the bush for any signs of their quarry. Each and every one was silent, some uncharacteristically so, others by long rote and roll, quite as much so as ever, the pensive feeling in the air pervading and growing by the minute. Yet the snap did not break the quiet. String did not part and throw the trap. Flesh was not caught. Not a hair of a hair showed itself in the trap, and finally John broke. Cleaning his spectacles under the pretext of perhaps missing a pleasant dinner, he scowled quietly to himself and shook them, hood falling in the process to show a thoroughly confused brown-haired fellow, with a series of tactician amulets strung together, and perhaps one too many scars. Supplementing the rations will be hard if none of us can hunt worth a blighted poxy dam, you know. We're almost out again.
I do,
Garth chimed in with poisonous sincerity, the gruff man's tone matching as the blacksmith's face contorted in a false smile.
Oh, how I know. You say it almost every hour, in one set of words or another.
His patched blast apron bunched slightly as he slouched, spreading burnt, calloused hands out in a gesture of supplication with slightly more good humor, but still visible annoyance. A leaf fell unnoticed from the corners of his black beard before he ran a hand through his salt-and-peppered hair and replaced his bandana.
Facts is facts, though, sir, and fact is, we ain't woodsmen. It ain't as easy as a ranger or a good yeoman even makes it look, and the rumbles to our bellies is proof enough of that.
Perhaps if our knight had in certainty, the chevalier could spring upon a deer or boar unnoticed until it lay impaled. The snobbish voice of the pudgy baronet brayed, lowing, one might say, as a bovine might. It was not a bray in that it was too deep, but certainly almost as mulish and annoying. In answer, the knight in question, unlike the three, remained silent, and would continue to, likely unto death. Though of greater social rank, Galaham Torix Rigby went quite a bit more quiet when the quiet figure simply tilted its helmet down towards him, and the squire to the hulking monstrosity briefly restrained a heavy urge to make a warning sign of helm at the figure.
Suppose we could always sell more of your fancy clothes off?
Garth clapped his shoulder, ignoring the baronet's scandalized and rapidly purpling expression at being touched by a measly commoner, if one in service to an exceedingly lowly class noble.
Means going into town and risking the law, but cooked food, eh? Good, solid cooked food. Maybe some spices if they like your shoes enough, but bread, eh?
Arrayed in torn silk over cheaply fitted armor, nattered with 100 brambles and muddy stains after some of the flight through the wild from their pursuers, Galaham spat at this notion, both in disgust at the notion of losing his affronted finery, and in disbelief that it would actually buy more than a week between them if he did make such a sacrifice. The blues and gold-threaded lapels to medals he had never earned looked threadbare and cheap in the dimming light, and mosquito bites had raised ruddy hills in the pale, fatty moon of his face. Sore muscles whined almost as loudly as he wanted to, legs from running, arms from training, for the heinous barbarian that was his tutor took it quite seriously indeed. It was difficult to learn from a silent master, one who mocked neither critique nor praise, but the Chevalier Disabled certainly made their point in other ways. 100 bruises spoke to that, 1,000 dents to pride, and mildly better stances. Galaham had never yet once forced the Chevalier to be serious with him in a bout, and he dearly feared for his life if it did raise the spirit too much, as he had seen the towering figure split helm and brain alike in with the great sword when in a blazing fury.
"We already sold the good black plate,"
bemoaned the quartermaster, John looking at the Knight of Black in its spare, cheap splint. The Chevalier de Sable, the fearsome Black Knight, subject of 100 hunts, champion of 15 tourneys, scourge of chivalry, had blued grey armor, not in fact black at all, while the coat of arms worn on both servingmen's chests was a very pleasant green, surground, with black, blue skies and a daffodil, the house having never been particularly militaristic before this particular specimen. The helmet turned to him in turn, but with a more forgiving air, swathed mildly in heavy layers of dwarf-giffen scarf in several warm tones of red, and a spear-bound ragged banner showing 2 fighting geese atop a bear's shoulder waving in sad heraldry. 1,500 gold, and how far did it go in the end? Not hardly.
Look, they might not even know, despite the size.
Garth placated before staring longingly at the trap again, Galaham spitting.
It's true, the boss ain't exactly small for a human, ain't exactly normal, but the armor's right concealing, and there's lots of things that's bigger than human, you know. Could be a right furbog under the middle, or a Goliath, or some oversized mutant gnome, or an undersized, underfed giant of some sort, or a bugbear or some...
A very large hand swept to bid him quiet, and he did, the 3 lapsing back into the silence of before the Chevalier straightened without a sound and unsheathed the blade, hurtling into the tree line with all its weight. Sounds of pain and altercation followed, the unmistakable roaring of a dire bear, swiping and biting and hugging, met with the sounds of stabbing, slashing, breaking, thuds and one-sided pain emitting before the bloody brawl was ended. Galaham tentatively peered through the large crushed and ruined foliage, to look and see if his mixed bag of benefactor and curse was dead, only to see the great sword solidly shoved through the bear's jaw, out the back of its head, and in the contorted position the berserker had broken it into, back into the twisted spine again. The knight dusting himself off and looking round blearily. When Jean came into the clearing, the Chevalier indicated being injured, and waved the lifelong serviceman to assist, but kept no words.
Well, it's a fine thing. The meat should last a little, even without salt to preserve it.
Garth looked over the bear approvingly.
Can't sell as much of the hides and furs with all the cuts, but it'll eat. We still might want to, I know it causes your noble selves no end of pain to think it, go into town and find a job of some sort if we want to keep eating after this is done, though.